The average person is programmed to be complacent. Most people tiptoe through life. There is no safe path with a good ending. For the first 30 years of my life, I had no idea what I wanted to do. We have less purpose, less direction, we have less action than ever before. It is riskier to do nothing. If you do nothing, nothing changes. Nothing can change you. It's all inside. You have to change you. You decide your purpose. The biggest differentiator between people who are successful and people who are not successful is the ability to give yourself a command and follow it. I have this vision of myself standing on a stage in front of 100,000 people, telling them all that they can be the hero of their own life. And what are you willing to trade for the life you want? If you say, this is the life I want, and I am willing to give whatever it takes to get there, you will get there. I want to be able to show people that there's a better way to live, and I had to become the main character in the story because no one was going to do it for me, to go ahead and pursue something that's actually meaningful, that will actually light up my soul and make me look back and say that was a life well lived.
It's the man that we all know and love. He is genuinely a legend on X, and no matter what niche or business model you're in, you've certainly heard his silky, crisp voice on an X space or seen his magnificent dragon milestone posts. He is the hero of X. And some will say that he is a hero without a cape. But if he had a cape, it would be tattered and worn, but nevertheless still very much intact and flowing in the wind proudly. His cape would represent the journey and how he has documented literally every moment of it. And watching and being a part of this journey with him has literally changed my life. From neon signs to incredible talking heads in the forest to Apple Watch pictures, he is the second coming of Tony Robbins. He is truly on a hero's journey. This man is one of the most intelligent, well spoken, and authentic people that I've met over the last month or so. And even though we may be an ocean apart, 6 hours apart in time zone, I'm very, very glad to bring him on the show. Will Carter, welcome to the podcast.
Man, thank you so much. That is a humbling introduction.
So let's get right into the questions. Tony,
Okay, let's do it.
before you arrived on X, what did your life look like? And what were the inflection points along that timeline that you think really impacted, I guess, your personal journey and your business journey as a whole?
Well, that is a great question. So, before I was on X, I was actually a mortgage advisor for the longest time. I spent 10 years in corporate banking and 7 years before that in other associated sales. But for the last 10 years, I was a mortgage advisor and manager. And my day looked like getting up and going to a job that I really didn't care that much about. It was a prestigious job and I got paid very well for what I did, but it didn't fill the part of me that the fire inside really wanted to call me towards. And that is what, more than anything else, when the opportunity came to leave, because we had a mass layoff earlier this year, I jumped on it and I thought, well, now is the time. I'm never going to get a better chance than this to go ahead and pursue something that's actually meaningful, that will actually light up my soul and make me look back and say that was a life well lived. So the major turning point for me was when I realized that this was my chance. And if I took it and I gave it absolutely everything, win or lose, I would never regret it.
Mm, absolutely. So I think your first post was an insane inflection point because it went crazy. It got like almost 8,000 views or something like that. And I think it really did spark this whole journey for you. And I kind of just want to read it because it's so crazy to see where you started and where you are now.
Okay.
8 months ago, I hit my lowest point. Years of sitting too much and eating junk food had caught up with me in a big way. I said no more and committed to becoming the best version of myself. I've still got a long way to go to realize my vision, but I'm getting closer every day. And just that side by side picture was
Mm.
so just like eye opening, I think. So walk me through that journey for you, from September 2023, where you were,
Yeah.
to May 2024 when you first started X.
Well, that is a journey. So I reached that point where my my day was filled with a way to distract myself from that sort of feeling of not doing what I was meant to do. And I always try and speak well of my previous job because I love the job and I love the people. And I learned so much from it. You know, sitting down and helping people buy houses in this economy is a very noble thing to do. And I love doing it. But I realized that a lot of what I was doing with, because I used to stream games as well, like I was gaming, I was eating too much junk food, and I really wasn't prioritizing myself. And I realized I was following my programming. This is how I'd been programmed, was to get a nice, safe, secure job, you know, sort of turtle down when you've got your nice, secure job and ride it out. And there's this great quote that really sort of opened my eyes from, I heard it from Bob Proctor, and it's that most people tiptoe through life hoping to reach it safely to death, right? Like there is no safe path with a good ending because we all end up in the same place. So that really was like, okay, I have to make a change if I'm going to live the life that I know I want, because I've always had this feeling that I I should be doing more than I was, right?
Right.
And what really sort of tipped the scales into this path that I'm taking now was that moment where I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this anymore and still be the person I want to be. I'm going to have to make a choice. And when I made that choice, it was a case of a clean cut. And it was all the junk food went,
Mhm.
all the sitting down went.
Yeah.
I went months without playing a video game. And it was a case of, right, okay, I now have to become the new version of myself. I can't just think about it. I've actually got to go ahead and do it. And that's the difference in those 8 months side by side. It was a physical change for sure. I think I dropped 35 to 40 kilos, which is about 88 pounds. But the real change was in here. I became somebody different. I was no longer the passenger. I was no longer the NPC, as I call it. I had to become the main character in the story because no one was going to do it for me. And that's where I learned. That's what influenced my journey to become the hero of the story. And that is what I want for everybody else.
Yay. So powerful. And you mentioned something from Bob Proctor that I really love: tiptoeing through life, trying,
Mm.
play it safe. And
Yeah.
like, what do you think about that? Because I feel like a lot of people struggle with it. They just want to stay in that secure spot. Like, they have a decently paying job, their life is pretty satisfactory. But what about the people that want something more exceptional, that are in the position that you were? What advice would you give to them to like take that next step, or to take the leap and take that risk, do
Mm.
something scary that could potentially pay off in the future?
Well, I would say that the average person is programmed to be complacent. They're programmed to be safe. And if we look at the way that the average person is raised in the UK and in the US and in most developed countries, they are trained to go to school, to go to college, to get a job, to stay at that job,
Mhm.
and then to retire. And then that's when they can hopefully become the main character, just for like the last 5 levels of the game. So I would look at anybody who has that path in front of them and who says, I want more than this from life.
Mm.
Because we do always have to acknowledge the fact that the average person has a good life. When we look back several hundred years in the past, the average person had a miserable existence. It was maybe only the top 10% that had houses and houses with like heating and things like that could afford the luxuries that we take for
Yeah.
granted. If that is a level that people want for themselves, I say there is nothing wrong with that if that is what you choose, if you live intentionally and you say, right, this is what I want. I want to live a quiet life. I want to be able to kick back after work. I don't want to have to think too much about, the next step, and I want to be able to enjoy the moment. That's fine. But for those people who think, I'm only going to get one bite at this apple and I want it to be amazing, then you will have a difficult conversation with yourself. You will have to say, well, am I willing to give up the certainty of knowing where my next paycheck's coming from? Am I willing to give up the certainty of my routine and my programming and my limiting beliefs? Because we are all the sum total of our beliefs at the end of the day. That's what outpictures in through our actions into the world. So the best thing I could say to somebody who's where I was is, what are you willing to give for what you are willing to get? What do you want to trade for the life you want? Because if you say, this is the life I want, and I am willing to give whatever it takes to get there, you will get there. because nothing can stop somebody who's that determined. So, yeah, it's just a case of like finding the trade. Are you willing to give up comfort for progress? Are you willing to give up a life of a life of certainty for a life of adventure? Are you willing to become the hero? Are you willing to go from NPC into the hero of your own story? Because you can, and the only thing that's ever been holding you back is your own mind.
Mm, always so powerful to your journey. And speaking of giving up something to reach this level of being exceptional, and just having these kind of moments in your life where you realize, okay, I have to make this change. It's going to be scary. And you said goodbye to like junk food video games. And
Mm.
in one of your very early posts, you had a bunch of steaks. I think you had 12 steaks
Yeah.
in little meal prep packages. And the tweet goes, I eat the same thing every day. Meal prep has never been easier. It may be boring to some,
Hmm.
but it changed my life forever. Consistency is greater than novelty. And I think that's
Mm.
such a perfect little nuanced way of seeing it, right? You wanted to live a different life, right? You said goodbye to junk food, and then you said hello to eating the same thing every day, even though it was boring. So walk me through that journey. Like, how was that transition for you? Because I'm sure I think you do eat the same thing every day still.
I do. I do. I might always do. It depends. My body is responding very well to it. So I eat carnivore, basically beef, butter, bacon, eggs, black coffee, and cheese. So not super strict carnivore, but like pretty strict.
Hmm.
And I try and do it with a 16-8 eating window. So I eat for 8 hours a day. The big definition that happened there for me that allowed me to unlock this because there was that mental barrier, right? Like, oh my God, I'm having to give up all this stuff that tastes good. And I realized, and I went inside and I was like, okay, what am I actually giving up? Am I giving up nutrition? No, because this stuff is more nutritious. Am I giving up health? No, this stuff is going to give me more health. Am I giving up, anything that is worthwhile? And the only thing I was giving up was novelty, was dopamine from the food. Like, because when you eat something and you get that dopamine rush, you feel like you've rewarded yourself,
Hmm.
which is dangerous. But no, the only thing I was giving up was novelty. And that is what most people chase, right? When somebody wants to land a bigger job, when somebody wants a bigger car, they think that fulfillment is on the other end of it. But all that's really there is novelty. And that wears off so quickly. And I looked at food and I was like, well, this wears off in just a few moments. So, like, where am I going to be in a few moments' time? I'm going to be back to square one. And if I eat the junk, I'm going to be hungry again. So, why don't I just skip that little dopamine hit, end up in the same place, but have a nutritious life? And the wonderful thing is, when you cut out all the stuff that is holding you back, and like for me, I was insulin resistant, I was pre diabetic, I was morbidly obese, according to the scale. And it really was a case of like, well, I'm not gaining anything from these actions. And they're actually, the only reason I'm taking them is because I think I'll feel something when I get them. When I eat the food, I think it'll make me feel good, but I know it's just a trap. So when I was able to make that mental switch, the actual removal became effortless. It became easy. And
Hmm.
eating the same thing every day, it doesn't get boring to me because I'm eating good, nutritious food. But it's also a case of like this, every time I eat this, I'm building a block towards the person I want to become rather than regressing towards someone I don't want to become. So I look at it almost like a game. Every time I do this, it's a vote for the person I want to be, as James Clear says.
I love gamifying things. It makes things so much more fun. For an entrepreneur that is just starting out, like a beginner that has these bad habits and is aware that they have these bad habits and they know
Mm,
that they want a better life and a better kind of just like mindset, but they're kind of struggling to cut out these things, like you said, like to remove them from their lives. How would you go about that? I know that you said a shift in mindset is super critical and it makes the entire process easier, but how was that like for you? Did you like how was changing your diet from junk food and now down to, a very strict carnivore kind of diet where you're eating the same thing every day? Was that
mm.
something that happened quick or was that something that you had to like progressively get to?
So I would recommend, if I had to do it again, I would say maybe carve out a month and say, right, okay, during this month, I'm going to be cutting out this week, cutting out like sugary drinks the next week. I did it all in one day. April 22nd, I think it was the the first day that the light went off in my head and be like, okay, I need to make a switch. It didn't actually take. I didn't actually get there. I failed like several times until the September, but like that's when I made the switch in my head, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be as strict as I can be, and then I know I'm gonna fail at some point, but I'm gonna pick myself up immediately afterwards, right? I'm not gonna let myself stay down, and that was my mentality. But then in September, when I'd reached that point, and I was like, okay, it's now or never. I am now this person. I sort of mentally worked my way around all the programming. And in September, I was like, I am now this person. And like who you identify as is so important for your mindset because our mind is always trying to keep us congruent, like in our actions and our thoughts, with who we see ourselves as internally. And this is
Mhm.
why I'm so big on the mindset because it is the foundation for all success, fitness, business, everything comes down to mindset. Because you can do the actions, but if you still feel like a poor person, even you might generate some money, you might see some health, you are programmed to sabotage yourself because you haven't changed the inside. And I saw a very powerful quote, right? And I think it was a study on lottery winners. And it's like 95% of lottery winners lose everything and become more poor than they were originally because they didn't become a rich person. They just got money. And
Mhm.
money without the internal identity of a rich person is a disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the same thing happens with food. You know, you have to see yourself. I consider myself an athlete. You know, I go to the gym, and I'm not competing or anything like that, but I am looking to myself and saying, okay, I'm only in a race with one person, me, but I have to win that race every day because
Mhm.
if I'm not moving forward, I'm moving backwards, and I always want to be moving forwards. And that for me, that switch is the key. So if anyone's just starting out on that journey, go ahead and figure out who you want to be. Like what does the ideal version of yourself look like? Step into that version and cast off the old version and be like, I am now this person. And every day I'm going to work to show that in my body.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just like that one little shift. Yeah, I think it's like people kind of view these kind of good habits, like building good habits and crushing bad habits, is this whole big thing. It's like super
Mm,
difficult. That they have to work really hard. They have to like sacrifice and suffer for a bit to overcome, and they have to do it over a long period of time. But really, it just starts with that mindset shift, and then everything just gets a lot easier. Like once you realize, okay, this thing is bad because of these reasons, and
mm,
this new thing that I could try is actually pretty good for these reasons. And just like going through that process over like, 30-day span. I think some creators like you don't even maybe 30 days is not even that like you don't even have to do 30 days. You might even be able to do it shorter, what a shorter timer isn't. But yeah, it's really interesting because I was thinking about the idea of shiny object syndrome, right?
mm.
And what it means to be doing boring things consistently over a very long amount of time. So what does that mean to you? Like how have you struggled with shiny object syndrome at all? And how do you kind of stay consistent on I guess your business, even though there's
Yeah.
like some boring things that you have to do anyway that you might not necessarily enjoy?
So I see my business as a gift. I mean, I've been blessed with vision for what I want to do with my life. And for the first 30 years of my life, I had no idea what I wanted to do. You know, when I was 15, I wanted to I wanted to be like a skateboarder and a guitarist, and I was growing up during that period of time. When I was in my 20s, I was so lost that I bounced from job to job, and I just ended up in sales because I like talking to people. When I was 30, I started really thinking, do I want to do something like, do I want to be an author? Because I love reading books. And then it was only really when I decided that I have learned so much from people like Bob Proctor, people like Earl Nightingale, and people like Napoleon Hill. And the problems that these guys try and solve is that most people are broke, most people are unhappy, most people don't have a purpose. Napoleon Hill was saying that 100 years ago, and it's more true now than ever. We are flooded with information, but we have less purpose. We have less actual direction. We have less action than ever before.
Mhm.
So the problems that these legendary people were trying to solve are still out there. And I figured, well, it's going to take more than just the people who have done it because the problem's not solved. This is where I come in and I can dedicate the rest of my life, however long I'm lucky enough to get, to trying to help people step into the power that they have. Because the thing is, no one on the outside, no video, no book, no seminar is ever going to change you Nothing can. It's all inside. You have to change you. You've got to be open to the information. I could write you out a 10-point list on how to become rich. I could write you out a 10-point list on how to lose weight like I did. But unless you decide, yes, I'm going to do it, I am now that person, I'm going to become it, you'll never do it. And so
Mm,
my job, my role, my purpose in this world is to try and present the path to personal mastery, you could say, becoming the
mhm,
person that you should be, stepping into your potential in a compelling way so that people see it and they think, yes, I can do that. I can be the version of myself I've always wanted to be. Will might show me the way, somebody else might show me the way. There's never going to be one person who solves this problem because humanity's evolving. But my purpose is to try and get as many people as I can to be like, I'm rejecting mediocrity. I am aiming for personal excellence, and I'm going to become the person that can do it.
mm. Yeah. And so this purpose of yours, right, to
Mm.
help people reject mediocrity and to help them become that person that they dream of. Was this something that you've always kind of known, like in your soul, or is this something that you've kind of discovered along the way?
It's something I had to decide. I grew up for the longest time thinking that purpose was hidden behind something. That if only I was a good enough person, or if only I was studious enough, then I could find it and unlock it. There's always that picture of the monk on the mountain, cross legged, waiting for a divine inspiration to hit them. And that's how I thought purpose was. I thought it was going to be something that I had to unlock and define because, the culture around us is like you have to find your purpose, you have to discover your purpose. But I say no, I say you decide your purpose. You think, what is it that I want? I have all this information, I have the infinite power to choose. What do I want to do with my life? And I looked at myself and I was like, well, do I want to spend the next 30 years of my life, my working days, selling mortgages for somebody else? Even though I enjoy the job, like, am I going to be satisfied? Is that a life well lived? And the answer was no. So I looked at myself and I said, well, what can I do? I want to be able to look back at my life and feel like I made the best use of it that I could. And I looked at these people who had inspired me and I said, right, I want to do what they do. I want to be able to show people that there's a better way to live. And in this day and age, where we have so many people promising quick results, right? We have so
Mhm.
many people promising 10K a month. If you only, clap your hands and turn around 10 times, you'll get 10K a month. But the real the real battle is never in the actions, right? The actions are a consequence of the state that you are occupying and who you are being. And I was able to look at myself and say, well, if you spend the next 30 to 40 years of your life, again, however much you're lucky enough to have, sharing this message that people have got the power to choose within them, then that is a life well spent. And that is how I decided what I want to do with my life, is to empower people. Because I have gifts that I'm able to share with the world. I have knowledge that I've built up over years. I've learned to be a pretty good communicator. And I was like, well, I can use these skills to help people see this message. And this message isn't new, right?
Mhm.
I didn't create the fact that you can change your mind. I didn't create the fact that you can choose your own reality by changing your mindset and actions. But all I can do is I can present it in a way which I hope is inspiring and will persuade someone to say, I'm not going to live the life that society has rolled out for me. I'm going to choose to live a life that I choose for myself. And that is my purpose, is to help as many people as possible walk that bridge towards the life that they truly want. Because as far as we know, we only get one shot at this game. We only get
Mhm.
one life. We don't get to stack them up like Mario. So it is riskier, and this is cliche as all hell, but it is riskier to do nothing because if you do nothing, nothing changes. You have to be able to step out and step into your own potential. And that is what I want to help people do.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I still remember this particular moment from our first ever call. Like it was that networking call. And we were talking about the gym and working out. And
Hmm.
I was asking you about like consistency and like discipline when it came to going to the gym. I think it was like somewhat related to business as well. And this small little habit that you mentioned, like actually blew my mind. Like on the call, like I tried to act like I didn't really care, but it blew my mind. Um, and so there was this neon sign at the back of your gym that says time to train.
Hmm.
And I believe you said that your minimum viable action every single day, whenever you are supposed to go to the gym, is go to the gym, and touch that back wall where the sign is. And I would like to know of the origin story behind this sign and what
Yeah.
it means to you on a deeper level.
Yeah. Well, this is, I suppose if I have a heroic backstory, this is probably where it started. So I worked, I've been going to the gym on and off, right, for a while. I trained pretty well in my early 20s. I was fit. I used to play football. I was a skateboarder. I was pretty fit. But
Mhm.
then those years of like making the easy choices, which makes the track harder down the road, I had made the easy choices and I had found the hard part of the road. So I had gone through the valley of ease and I was now on my way up the mountain of difficulty. And I said to myself, well, if you're going to do this, if you're going to actually become the kind of person that you want to be, that the world needs you to be in order to do the mission, then I'm going to have to be physically fit. And I have a goal by the age of 40, so that is 3 years tomorrow, that I am going to be a superhero physique.
Mm.
And I'm not shy about it. Like, I want to look damn good for 40, right? And I I said to myself, right, the easiest way to build the habit is to never miss a day. Because if you never miss a day, it just becomes a part of your routine, it becomes a part of your identity, and you'll do it on autopilot. And the part of my life, my part of my brain that had been loving the easy life was like, easy, I like that. Let's do that. So I was using this, and I said, well, what's the easiest thing I can do that's actually going to move the needle? Thinking about the gym isn't going to do it. Talking about the gym isn't going to do it. I have to actually step foot in the gym. And that became my MVA, my minimum viable action. So the minimum thing I could do every day was to go to the gym. And in the back of the gym, because they'd moved buildings a few times, but this sign had always been there. This sign says time to train. So I said to myself, okay, if I can go to the gym every single day, all I've got to do is just go and touch that sign and then I can go home. And this is kind of like a brain hack, right? It's like, that's a really easy thing. It's like a 7 minute drive to get there. Touch the back wall and then you can come home. And the goal of this is to make it so ridiculously silly easy, right? It's just
Mhm.
to remove that mountain of like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go work out for an hour. It's to get rid of that from your thinking and think, I've just got to go touch a sign, be right back. But you never do that. You're like, I'm here. I've done the
Exactly.
hard part. Let's train. And I've never missed a day because it's so simple to just get my brain into that thinking. It's like I can genuinely leave. And like if I'm running late, I might only do like a 20-minute workout because I've been there, I've touched the sign. I was like, I can now leave whenever I want. But I get so into the workout, I get so into following the program that I've made for myself that I can just get into it, get into the flow. And I'll tell you something this, I have never regretted a workout, not once. Even when I've injured myself, I've still thought that I still thought that is built me up on the inside, right? It's built the muscles, it's built the endurance, it's built the strength, but it's built my character more. And that has been the biggest win for me.
Mm. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is mind blowing, even more mind blowing because yeah, it's so much easier to build a good habit whenever it's so easy that it's impossible for you to not do it, right?
Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned whenever you go there, there's never been a single time that you haven't done the workout. And it's such
No.
a good hack. Yeah.
The hard part of going to the gym is going to the gym. Once you're at the gym, it's easy. And because of the kind of training that I do, right? I do strength training. It's like you're in a competition with yourself. So it's like last time I lifted 150 kilos. This time I think I can get 155 or 152.5. Let's throw them on there and see what happens. And if you're a competitive person like I am, it's great to channel that into battling against yourself. It's just, I love it. The gym is one of my favorite places to be.
Yeah. I found the same thing with my runs. Like going on those really long and hard and terrible runs that I dread every single time. It builds a lot of character because those
Mm,
first few miles suck. But then you're kind of just like halfway through, or you're like over halfway through, and it's like, okay, I can make it. And then the last few miles really, really suck again. But then at the end, it's just so rewarding. And at least in business, it's helped me a lot with like just my mindset, like with the work. It's
mm,
I definitely wouldn't be able to work as hard if I wasn't like working out, right? If I wasn't going to the gym or running, because it helps you build like this fortitude, like this competition against yourself to just work harder or to perform at a higher level. And I think it actually kind of applies to business. So do you kind of
mm.
have the same thing happening in your life?
I'm going to make a bold claim. I I doubt that you will find one successful, really successful person that doesn't train. It's that good for you. And
Mhm.
if you, because the thing is, right, we know training is good. Everyone knows eating healthy and training is good. If you don't do it, you are saying to yourself, I am not taking care of my body. I'm choosing the easy way out. And people don't get successful by choosing the easy way out. So you'll usually find that if somebody is successful in business, they're successfully able to present and show up and sell and build and sell products, then they're normally going to be able to take care of their body as well because they're able to do the thing that is hard. And the biggest differentiator between people who are successful and people who are not successful is the ability to give yourself a command and follow it. Self-discipline. If you can master self-discipline, which involves uh, delaying gratification, it involves sacrificing, which just means making sacred. You give up something of a lower order in order for something of a higher order. You say, I don't care about this instant win. I'm going to be chasing this highest win. If you're
Mhm.
able to make that choice, the gym almost acts as an outlet for that because you say to yourself, right, I don't want to, and you see this on X all the time. It's like, I didn't want to train today, so I trained today. You know, it's catchy, it's fun, you like to see it, but it means something deeper. It means I beat the part of me that wanted me to be weak. And
Yeah.
that is the ability to do the hard thing even when it sucks. It's the ability to push yourself to do the thing. And that translates directly into making the sales call. It translates directly into putting yourself out there, putting yourself on camera for the first time.
Mhm.
These skills build resilience, they build character. And as I'm going through my life and I'm finding myself becoming more spiritually awake, I suppose you could say, because I had this breakthrough the other day, which was like the first 25 years of my life were just about the physical, right? It was about, partying, it was about drinking, it was about getting success in terms of money and things like that. Then the next, because I got depressed after that, right? The next 10 years were working through the mental side of things, which was like, okay, building my mindset up to the point where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to give up what I want now for what I want later. And now, as I'm moving into the last part of my life, the spiritual side is taking over the last third. And it's really allowing me to see that you need all three in order to be a holistically fulfilled person: the body, the mind, and the spirit. And like the discipline is almost like the key that unlocks all three, right? You discipline your body in the gym, you discipline your mind with study and training, and the spirit side of us is perfect, but it's disciplining your attention towards it. So discipline is the key. Consistency and discipline. And you can see if you look at my posts, a lot of the early stuff when I first came in here was like, this worked for me, let me share it.
Yeah, absolutely. Go into the spiritual side of things because I know it's what you're focusing on now. I think it's super
Mm.
fascinating. And I think a lot of people could definitely learn a lot from that. Like, personally, even I could work on that spiritual third of my life. So, how has that journey been for you, and what are you currently working on?
It has been transformational because I studied a lot of the greats from the past: Napoleon Hill, Joseph Murphy, Neville Goddard, and I studied them with the lens of I want to learn how to make money. I want to learn how to be
Hmm.
more physically successful. And these were the richest people in the world. Andrew Carnegie was the first billionaire, the richest person in the world. And he was very spiritual. Okay. Earl Nightingale came along in the 50s and the 60s, and he put out The Strangest Secret, which was the first, I think it was the first $1 million selling record that wasn't music. And he was a deeply spiritual person. And I thought, okay, that's two. I went back and I studied Napoleon Hill, and like he has an entire chapter in his book all about faith. And I was like, okay, that's three. What's going on? And then you study the most successful people, and they have all three, right? They have all three elements in check. And that's really what set me off down this path about the mindset. And, I got into the sort of the laws of mind through Bob Proctor, right? He was probably the biggest influence on my life. And he was all about the blend of the three, right? He said he never had a weight problem, but he had a mental problem around money, and he had a complete spiritual block. But when he was able to work through them, he went from, I think he was earning $4,000 a year, and he owed six, right? So he was in the hole,
Hmm.
and he could never
Hmm.
get out of it. And within a year of studying Earl Nightingale's material, The Strangest Secret, which is all about how the mind is the product of what you place in it repeatedly, He went from 4 grand a year to 175 grand a year. And this was back in like the 60s when that actually was a lot of money. It's probably like a million today. So that captured my imagination. And I thought, right, okay, if he can do that, I can do that. And the spiritual side of things has evolved recently within the last 2 years. And I read The Secret when it first came out in 2006, and I was like, nonsense. Nonsense. I was such an atheist for the longest time because I grew up in a religious household and I'd seen some terrible things happen. I was like, well, this is clearly nonsense. But when I circled back around to it and I started to read all these success books from the lens of making money, and they all had this spiritual aspect to them, I decided to give it another go. And I went back and I started to read a lot of them with this lens, right? Okay, what does this spiritual stuff mean? And the mainstream media is make that the law of attraction like a very trendy thing. So I bounced off that originally and I came back to it and I said, okay, well, is there any truth to this? And I looked at my life and I said, well, this all adds up. And I don't like the law of attraction as a thing, like as a law, because it's a subsidiary law, right? The main Hermetic principle, the law, is resonance and vibration. And this is scientifically provable, right? This is stuff that Tesla was talking about. This is stuff that the great scientists can prove. Um, and then I started to think, okay, well, if I take away the mainstream view of this and I start digging into the actual principles, what is there? And it turns out that it's all true, right? Like Han Solo says in Star Wars, it's true, all of it. All of these super successful rich people knew what they were talking about, it turns out. So I have deep dived into this and I have learned so much about where the thoughts like actually come from, this part of us that is attuned to whatever you call the higher part of us, right? I like to call it the divine because again, God can trigger some people. But like the divine part of us is the part that's connected to everybody. And it's the part that allowed me to know what my purpose was because
Mhm.
it's the part of me that is like, I don't believe there's anything predestined. I believe that we are all able to choose, but there are certain things within our life that are the result of who we are being in the moment. And it's who we are being in the moment, both on a mental and a spiritual aspect, that creates the circumstances of our life. And this blew me away. I was like, oh, no wonder I was losing for 10 years. I was thinking about it. So when I started to think, right, well, if I only think good thoughts, if I only think positive thoughts, and that becomes my identity, that will allow me to express through my feelings and actions the results in the world. And like one thing that actually bridged this gap for me, because for the longest time, when I read books around spirituality, law of attraction, there was always this gap that didn't make sense to me. It was always
Mhm.
like you think about what you want and then you get what you want. But I was like, well, what about doing stuff? Like, don't I have to go out and make sales and go out and speak to
Yeah,
people?
right.
And a lot of people are like, no, don't do it. Just sit there and meditate and it'll all come to you to your door. But when I learned from Maxwell Maltz, this model, right, this psycho-cybernetic loop, which has completely changed my life, which is the identity that we hold about ourselves influences our beliefs, which influences our thoughts, which influence the way we feel, which influences what we do and how we act, which then influences the results, and that reinforces the belief. That made the gap close for me. And I was able to see that's how thoughts become things. They don't do it. And there is an element of magic to it, I suppose, but I only say that in the way that science doesn't yet understand it, but it will.
Mhm.
And I said this on a space the other day. It was just like, I look back at the Greeks and how they viewed the gods, and they gave the gods a name because they didn't understand the science. And we look at like Helios and Nox, the day and the night. We look at Poseidon for the waves because they didn't understand the way that the pressure and the currents worked. So they gave it the best definition they could. And I truly believe that thousands of years from now, people will look back at this time in our history and say, these people knew that this thing existed, this mechanism by where we become what we think about, but they didn't know exactly how it worked. And they will know. They'll be able to look back like we look back. But I think that's truly the biggest thing I can ever say is like the blend of body, mind, and spirit, bringing that into a holistic being. That is how to express a true and fulfilling life.
Oh, body, mind, and spirit. And I think it's really exciting to think about the future where people will actually, like, thousands of years from now, people will understand the law of attraction deeper and like
Mm.
actually with like evidence of why it works. That would be,
We're getting close,
yeah,
but
that would,
I think that would be huge. Because
yeah.
think about this, right? Every single person in the world has the same power. We're all made of the same stuff, right? And a lot of religions sort of congregate around this point that we're all made in the image and likeness of whatever made us. People call it God. We're made in the image and likeness of God. And if we look at that as the mental and the spiritual side, I look at this through the lens of imagination. And I learned this from Neville Goddard, which was the imagination is the mind of God. And we are made in the image and likeness. We are made in the image and likeness of the Creator, and we have been endowed with creative faculties, the ability to create in our mind. And the great news is that you can change your identity, your core being, just in the imagination. You don't need the physical world to change because the mind doesn't really understand the difference. There is an amazing scientific paper on this where it says that a certain event in the imagination, if it's emotionalized and if it's repeated, will become as real in the subconscious as something that happens externally. So, with that, we can change our self image internally, meaning we don't need anything on the outside to change. But when we do change it, we will have different thoughts. We will do different things. And like this is how people can bridge that gap from being somebody who is, procrastinating, who's being lazy. No amount of external influence is going to do that. It's intuition that does that. Inner tuition, inner learning
Mhm.
from within, intuition. And like that inspires you to take the correct actions to be in line with who you choose yourself to be. And as I'm digging deeper into this whole we create our own reality rabbit hole, I am finding so many more people that are all lining up on this point.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I loved earlier when we were talking about spirituality, you mentioned Earl Nightingale. And
Mm,
of
the OG.
course, by coincidence, I had a quote that you had posted onto Twitter a long time ago. People with goals succeed because they know where they're going.
Hmm.
His strangest secrets isn't really a secret at all. And so, in this post, you had three goals for yourself by the end of 2024. And I
Hmm.
guess we can put this idea of law of attraction to the test to see, how's your progress coming along. So one
Yeah.
was achieve 15% body fat.
Hmm.
You started at 43.8%. And so you
Yes.
said this is very ambitious. And then you
It
said
is
you'd
very
write
ambitious.
10K high impact posts. And then you said you'd create a business that aligns with your values. You said your
Yeah.
mission is to create a business that helps people level up
Hmm.
through products, services, or coaching, and you want to just positively contribute to people's lives. So, how are your goals coming along? And let's see if the law of attraction really does do magic.
Well, I can tell you that no dump truck of purpose has shown up. No amount of posts magically appeared. But I can tell you that I'm currently at 8,421 posts. So we're definitely getting the 10K. We might even get to 12. Uh,
Mm.
body body weight is probably at about 97 kilos today, so a little bit still high, but I've got 4 months to lock in and get that done. Body fat's about 25%, so we're down a lot. So, yep,
Yeah,
I think we're on track for that. And I have created my business. It is going through the first round of ideation and testing, but it's launched, it's helping people, those people are getting results, and it's everything I wanted it to be. And it's only going to get better. So, I am going to hit all three of those goals, and I'm going to set even more ambitious goals for next year.
absolutely. I love the ambitious goals. Definitely, it's sort of relatable. Um, so, while you were working on these goals this year, and you kind of started a little bit late, right? I think you set these goals in. Well, I don't know if you actually set these goals at the beginning of the year or in May when you started X,
No, it was
but
May. Mm.
yeah, so like like a little under halfway through the year, what have you learned about yourself as you were working towards these goals? Is there anything particularly memorable about, this journey so far that you've figured out about you as a person and how you've
I'm
developed from working towards these goals?
Absolutely. I mean, I am always developing. I'm always a work in progress, right? And I think
Mhm.
that's the same for everybody else. I have learned so much about who I am and like what I am over the last 4 months of just posting every day. I've learned that it's all about who you see yourself as, about who you say I am. And again, I don't want to get religious about this point, right? But the I am is the name of whatever you call God, right? I am that I am. So whatever I say that I am, I become immediately. And like this is one thing I learned from Earl Nightingale was he said, as soon as you have a definite purpose and you say, I am now working towards that goal, at that moment you are successful, not when you get it. You are successful when
Mm,
you're working towards it. So I said to myself, I am now successful, that I am working towards these goals. And it's not about getting the goal, right? The thing isn't going to fulfill me. I already have the fulfillment because I'm working towards it. I already have the fulfillment that I thought I wanted. And another beautiful concept that I learned was whenever you want a thing, like a car or a house or a big check full of money,
mm.
you want the thing because you think it's going to make you feel a certain way. It's going to make you feel accomplished. It's going to make you feel superior. It's going to make you feel like you've won. And that feeling is what you really want. And the feeling is available right now. And you can have that in imagination. So you can have the goal. So it's never about the physical, tangible thing. It's about becoming the person to whom having that thing is natural. That's what you really want. That's what I've learned about myself. Is that all I ever want to do is become a better version of myself.
Mm. Yeah, hell yeah, I love that. There was a point along your journey in June where you set out on a 30-day habit challenge where I think you started at 7 a.m. and you wanted to cut it back 30 minutes and wake up 30
Hmm.
minutes earlier, so 6:30. And what I noticed, like you said, you took a picture of your Apple Watch every single day, posted on X consistently, and then tracked the other habits that you're doing at the same time, like your diet and your weight.
Hmm.
And then every single day, I noticed something. Right from the get go, you basically crushed your goal. I don't think there was a single time from the posts that you made where you were over 6:30.
Hmm.
And so 6:30, and then went down 6:20,
Hmm.
6:10, hovered around 6:10 for a while, and then hit 6, and then you
Yeah.
stayed at 6 for the rest of the month. And that's just like crazy because you crushed your goal, you doubled your goal, you reduced
Hmm.
your wake up time by an hour instead of half an hour. And I guess like from an entrepreneurial perspective, how do you like progressively overload towards your goals, towards something that you're working on over a long time horizon, even though it would suck, right? Like waking up earlier, it wouldn't feel good, but you managed and you pulled it off and you stayed consistent. And
Hmm.
now I'm sure that that habit has taken hold in your life. So
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, how do you progressively overload towards your goals?
That's such a good way of looking at it because progressive overload is just always challenging yourself, right? It's consistently increasing the weight, consistently increasing the reps. And the reason I do this is exactly what you just said. It is always to keep just challenging myself. So as an entrepreneur, which I now identify as, because that was a big thing for me, right? Is going from 15 years of being employed, 17 years of being employed into being an entrepreneur. It was a massive shift. It was when I realized I have to take full responsibility for everything in my life. That is when I thought, right, okay, I have to challenge myself. The reason I did the public challenge was to show people that it can be done, because that is ultimately the goal, right? Is to try and inspire people to make the change. And this is why I'm doing the video challenge now in September. It's exactly the same thing. We're going to do a video every single day for September. But how I challenge myself is I have the goal that I want to work towards. Like for me, I have this vision of myself standing on a stage in front of 100,000 people, telling them all that they can be the hero of their own life. And I know I'm going to get there because that's like sort of the output, right? The end goal. So
Mm.
all I want to focus on is what inputs can I do to get me closer? And my inputs every day need to be getting me one step closer towards that goal. And when I hit that input and it feels easy, I then up the input. And it's like you said, I love it. Progressively overloading your efforts in your mind, in your body, in the gym, in your spirituality, in entrepreneurship in general. It's just a case of inputs and outputs. So I break it down and I look, what is my input looking like for today? How can I improve that? How can I challenge myself to make that one tiny little percent better? And over
Mm-hmm.
the course of years and decades, I will get to where I want to be.
Yeah, yeah. I just love that idea. Just like getting a little bit 1% better every single day. Even
Yeah.
if it's like nothing huge, just like having so many ways for yourself to win. Right. I think it was Hormozy that talked about having so many metrics that you track that like you have to improve at least one of them, and that in itself is a win.
Yeah, absolutely. If we look at if we look at the game of life and business as a win slash lose, a binary, like you either win or you lose, then it becomes very easy to get discouraged if you don't win for like 2 or 3 days in a row. But if you break it down and you be like, did I give 100% today? Yes. Did I get a result that I was looking for? No, maybe I didn't. Can I see from that how I could get 1% better tomorrow? Yeah, I can see if I schedule an extra 5 minutes into my sales calls, I'll have more time to close and, I won't feel as rushed. That is a win. And if you can find one win in what you do every day and you
Mhm.
bring that and you intentionally say, yeah, I'm going to do that going forward, it's inevitable that you'll succeed. It's just a case of inputs over a long enough period of time. And the one thing that I am doing these days, which has had the biggest impact in my success, is I'm asking myself every day, multiple times a day, who am I being right now? And that, whenever I ask that question, it pulls my mind out of the problem and it puts it back into being in control. Like, who am I being right now? I am choosing to be a successful entrepreneur. Therefore, I will think about this like a successful entrepreneur would.
Right.
And I will always do that because that always puts me back in control.
Controls everything. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so in your business right now, I guess I kind of want to tie this like your business into like your Apple Watch pictures. If there was one screenshot or picture that you could take that would be like a accountability, like a challenge in your business right now, what would it be? Like, what would you screenshot? What would you take a picture of and post on X to show that you showed up and that you did the thing for your business?
That is a great question. So my business is basically mindset, and it's going to become mindset and spiritual support for conscious entrepreneurs, for people who have a life that they want to design in line with their own vision for
Mm.
themselves. So my output is how my clients did. It's not how I did. So when I show up every day, again, I post on X every single day. My metric for success is how well my clients are doing. Now, the way that I want to scale this and the way I want to track this down the line is how many people are consciously showing up every single day to be the hero of their own lives. And the way I'm doing that currently is inside my school community, which has gone through several iterations, but I'm happy with where we are right now as a free resource, a community of people who show up and check in on each other every single day. So my metric of success currently is, did I show up today? Did I post today? Did I do everything I could today? And did I identify one area where I could be better tomorrow? I suppose that's how I look at it. If I was to post something on X, I suppose it would be my client satisfaction, because I do poll everybody. I poll everybody to say, how satisfied are you with the service? What could be better? And I always aim to get that higher. So I think at the moment it's averaging around 90%, maybe 92%. I want to try and get that as close to 100 as I can. 100 might never be achievable because there's always room to grow. But that would be my metric of success.
Mm. Love it. Yeah, client results. And yeah, I love that metric. I think it's not about what you're doing exactly because you're still doing those actions, but it's about what your actions lead to for the people that you care about. Yeah.
That's ultimately what matters at the end of the day. Is because if I had a great day but my clients didn't, then I failed because I'm not here for me. My success comes from their success, and the purpose of my life is to be the one to inspire people to become heroic. So that is how I try. That is how I would challenge myself. How many people did I impact today? Because anything that I track for myself, like, how many houses I have, how many cars I have, how many holidays I took, that's not really going to impact people on a wider scale. It might inspire them in the short term. I could post a cool picture and be like, hey, I bought my 15th house. But is that really going to help them? Whereas if I show up and I was like, here is the person you could be, stay in the feeling of the person you could be, and you will improve your life. And then they go ahead and they do it and they get the results and they buy their first home. That is 100 times more powerful to me because I have positively impacted another person. I've changed the trajectory of their life. And it's easy for entrepreneurs to just look at the money, right? And I think this was definitely me when I was younger. I just wanted to get, your your first 100K in the bank. That's the hardest one. But then you get there and it's like, okay, now where's the next one? And it's the next one.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you go through this. And like, by the time I left employment, I had, I'd achieved good levels of success. I was making, $1 million mortgage deals, making my employer a lot of money, you know.
Hmm.
It was that missing feeling of fulfillment. And I thought to myself, like, if I do this for the rest of my life, I'm going to always be unfulfilled because I'm doing something that I just don't care about. If that job went away, I wouldn't care. So when I was making my business, I was like, I need a job that I can live upon. I can live the rest of my life upon this as my goal and my purpose and my reason for doing what I do. When I look at how do I track success, I'm already feeling the fulfillment that I was missing before. So the real metric for me is like, how much impact am I having? And I know that the money side of things is important and I track it and I'm very, financially aware and astute. But for me, it's about that impact.
Yeah. Impact is everything. And there was a recent tweet that you made. It was like the speedometer. I think it's so relevant to me and to like a lot of beginning entrepreneurs. And so you said that solopreneurship can be the way to a life of freedom. It can also be a trap for you to be in an endless loop of distractions. It's not about implementing every tip you see online. It's about focusing on the things that move the needle.
Hmm.
Clear goals, aligned mind, daily execution. So in your life right now, what does freedom look like? And is that something that involves, your business, or is it something completely separate from business?
No, I think it's one and the same. When you reach a point where you realize that everything you want to ever wanted is inside of you, and like nothing on the outside is just the confirming mirror. All right. So it's like if the real prize is who I become and I can change who I become on the inside, then I'm immensely free. I'm free now, and I'm in this wonderful position where, you know, I could not work for 10 years if I wanted to. But I didn't last 2 days before I started climbing the walls. I was like, I need to contribute. I need to do something that fills my soul with purpose and meaning because I could sit down and I said to myself last year, like I could try being a streamer. That could be fun. And it was so soulless. It was so
Mm.
soulless. I was entertaining people and I wasn't changing them. I might have given them a laugh for a minute, but like it really came down to like my ability to impact people and really change the way they see themselves because it's never about me doing something to somebody. I can never grant you a next level, right? It's always internal. I just want to help you draw it out. So freedom for me, I already have it. I can do what I want. I can go where I want. I can train at 12:30 in the afternoon, which is like the perfect time in the gym, by the way. It's empty. I
Yeah.
love it. I decide my days and I can go anywhere I want to. I can speak to anyone I want to. I have this wonderful thing on the internet where I can talk to you in America and I'm in the UK. I have all the freedom I'll ever need. And the beauty of my life and the life I want to try and get other people to live is to put them in that feeling of you are in control. You get to decide. And when people are in that 9 to 5 mindset, and again, I don't want to disparage on 9 to 5s, they are fantastic tools. I recommend that if you have one and you want to build, keep it and build on the side. But when you have that mindset of like, I'm just in the endless survival loop, I'm working to live so I can live to work, is true suffering. That is true. That is a prison in your mind. And freedom is the opposite, right? Freedom is realizing I get to choose the person I am becoming. I get to choose what I think about. That's the ultimate freedom. Because let me put this little experiment to you. If you decided in this moment that you were successful and you kept thinking that, you would be successful because you would influence your mind to make those actions. The only thing that stops that is you thinking against it. You thinking, oh, I actually got this bill I can't afford. I'm not successful. Actually, no one would take me seriously. Therefore, I'm not successful.
Mhm.
That is the only freedom that a person truly has is the ability to use the power that we get, this beautiful gift that we have, and direct it towards the goal that they want, direct it towards the life that they get to choose for themselves. And that is the ultimate freedom, which I have, and so do you.
Yeah. We already have the freedom. We don't need to search for it.
You
I
need
love
nothing
that.
outside. I said I made a tweet about this once. Like you need nothing outside of yourself, and I truly believe that we have everything we need.
Yeah. And the second part of the post was talking about the needle. In your business
Mm.
right now, say you wake up in the morning, you walk your dogs. I don't know what time you're waking up nowadays, but I'm pretty sure it's probably earlier than six.
Still about 6 for now.
Six, but you're still consistent, so that's all that matters. Um, what is the one highest leverage, like most needle moving thing that you do for your business right now?
Great question. So I'm in an interesting period of my business right now where I'm testing stuff.
Uh
I'm
huh.
testing what works. So the biggest thing that I'm doing right now is building. And for me, it's like, okay, I have this vision. And later in the year, right, and this might be a slight spoiler, from October through December, I'm going to be running a 90-day creator challenge, an intentional reality creating challenge. So for me, the biggest output for my business is client success. The biggest input for me is keeping my clients in a mindset of success. So, how do I do that? I must keep myself in a mindset of success so I can lead by example. And then I see my clients as successful and I allow the interactions that we have to be based on that feeling of, right, you're already successful. Let's show you how to get to the next level. And when I launched the business, it was only ever intended to be an accountability service, but it's become so much more. It's become a business coaching service. It's become a mindset coaching service. It's become a reality creation service,
Hmm.
essentially. And I absolutely love that. So, the biggest thing that I do every day, the biggest needle moving task for me when I sit down and work today is how can I help my clients? Can I get them to the next level? That for me is the input. It's like, what can I do today to get them to the next level? And then that will express in their output, their results. And then that in turn allows me to know what to focus on going forward.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it's a kind of a big struggle, at least whenever I was starting out, and I feel like for a lot of beginners, entrepreneurs, and solopreneurs, it's just like figuring out what is the most needle moving thing that I could be doing, right? And so, do you believe that there's like a universal kind of needle mover that any entrepreneur, whatever stage, whatever niche, whatever industry they're in, can do and like still move the needle? Is there anything, one little task, one specific task that anyone can do that would lead to a lot of progress? Or is it something that kind of you have to, that is specific to what you're doing?
So I would say that every niche, every business, every service is going to have metrics. It's going to have its own inputs and outputs, its own measures of success. But as a person, as a solopreneur, the very best thing that you can do for yourself is develop your mindset. Develop the identity of a winner, of a champion, of a hero, even. That is the highest leverage thing that you'll ever be able to do for yourself because when you change who you are being, you can jump on a sales call as somebody who believes that they're going to succeed, or you can jump on a sales call as somebody who believes that they're a failure. You might lose the sale in both cases, but the champion, the hero, will be able to interpret that in a better way. They'll be able to say, okay, well, this was someone who didn't resonate with my missions. It was someone who didn't resonate with my service. They've done me a favor by saying no, because now I'm not going to waste their time and I'm not going to waste my time. Let's get on to the next call. Let's find somebody who I can help. Whereas the person with the loser's mentality, with the NPC mentality, will kick their heels. They'll think, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? And in both cases, the outcome, like the situation didn't change, but the interpretation of it changed everything that came afterwards. So the number one highest leverage task, and this is a hill I will absolutely die on, the number one thing you can do is to develop your mindset, develop a heroic mindset, see everything as serving you, reject absolutely any idea that you're less than the very best version of yourself, and keep reinforcing it. Keep giving yourself those mental pep talks. Keep giving yourself the reinforcement that you are the best version. And if you can't do it yourself, find somebody to do it for you. Because the best person in the world, the most technically gifted person in the world, with a bad mindset will lose. Even if they have all the opportunity, If they don't believe they can, they won't. They'll find a way to sabotage themselves. You could also take the most disadvantaged person in the world. And if they have the unwavering belief that they will make it, I would bet on them every single time because they're going to find a way to make it. So the number one highest leverage thing that you can do as a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur, as somebody in life is develop a winner's mindset. Convince yourself that you will find a way no matter what, and you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes you a very dangerous person, especially if like you've got nothing to lose and you have that mindset. Oof.
Only
Okay.
dangerous to those who don't believe in you.
This is one of your OG posts, but I personally found it very relatable and pretty thought provoking, I'd say. And so I would love to hear what comes to mind whenever I remind you of it.
Hmm.
1,841 hours, almost 11 weeks wasted.
Hmm.
At the time, it felt so important. I fell for the trap of cheap dopamine, tricked into thinking I was making progress.
Hmm.
I was consistent, determined, and did not quit. That's a good thing, right? But it, in the end, was only a distraction. Today, I look back and it means nothing to me. Do I regret it? Yeah, I do. What could I have built instead? How much could I have learned? If you were going to die tomorrow, what would you give for another 11 weeks? Spend your time
Hmm.
wisely. So, Will, if you were to die tomorrow, what would you personally give for another 11 weeks of life?
Amazing question. If I was to die tomorrow, then there's nothing I would hold on to. Nothing, no possession of mine means anything to me, really. I use these tools, this nice house, the nice car, that they're tools to me to be able to do what I do, and I'm so grateful to be able to do what I do. If I only had 11 weeks to live, which is another way to look at that, like if I gave everything and I purchased 11 weeks with every worldly possession that I had,
Yeah.
how would I spend it? I would do exactly what I'm doing right now. I would want to leave an impact on this world because I might die tomorrow. You know, it's a possibility. There's a percentile chance of that happening. And when I look back um, to what I'll be remembered for, what will Carter mean? And I know as much as I love Hormozy, he's very nihilistic when it comes to this. He says the most you'll get is a shout out from like the nursing home that you lived at. But like, if you can change the course of someone's life, if you can inspire people to live a better life, if you can help them see the fact that they are these incredibly powerful beings, then revealing that to them, helping them see the power within themselves, it's the most powerful thing I could ever do. You know, I could I could jump on a plane and visit all the places that I wanted to see, but that wouldn't help the world. And at the end of the day, I'd still die. You know, I'd rather die knowing that I did everything I could to improve this game that we all play. So I would give everything for another 11 weeks, and I'd spend it exactly the way I'm spending it now.
Wow. Yeah. I expected that answer to be honest. I knew that you would commit to what you're working on now. Yeah, beautiful. Well, I end off every episode with this one question. I've been really liking this question, and I think a lot of the guests also enjoy it. If you could relive 1 minute of one moment of one memory in your life, what minute would you choose and why would you choose to relive it?
That is a good question. What would I want to relive? So there's this fallacy that we fall into, right? That if I could change something in my life, it would be different, and I'd be a better person. If only I could invest in Bitcoin when it first came out. Um, you know, but I think that everything we go through is 100% necessary to make us the person we are. So I would relive with not the intention to change, but just to re-experience. Ooh, that is a good question. I mean, I recently lost both my parents, and I would love to go back and tell them more. I was lucky enough; I wasn't able to be physically there when my mother passed, but I was able to be on Zoom, so it was kind of like the next best thing. But there's this great memory that I have from when we were all children, um, and we were all on a trip in France as a whole family, and everyone was still with us. My sister was there because she unfortunately passed away as well. But like, we had this beautiful summer fun day And I must have been about 10 at the time, maybe a little bit younger. And it was just this perfect day of just like going through all this amazing, like fun activities. My parents were happy and laughing. And that was such a great moment. That was like, if I could distill what happiness felt like into a moment, it would be that one. So I'd probably relive that again just to feel it, although it's always available. Like the great thing about the brain is it stores everything. So like if you get into a hypnotic state, you can recall that memory as if you were there. So you can do that.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, well, let the world know what you've been up to. This is the part where you plug or promote anything that you've got going on. So you got your ex, you got your
Yeah.
plans for the next 3 months.
Yeah. So
Share.
for me, I have been refining who I am and who I help. And over the last month, I have launched the Heroic Mastermind. This is, I said, premium mindset support for solopreneurs, but it's become more than that. The Heroic Mastermind is a small community of creators, of solopreneurs, who have each other's best interests in mind. And this is a group of people who all have massive aspirations. And my role in this group is to not let anyone's standards slip. I'm very keen on helping people live to their fullest potential. So, if this is a plug and this is an advert, what I would say to you, dear listener, is if you are a solopreneur struggling to go it alone, if you have dreams of living a life a true life living true to your purpose, and you want to get around winners who can hold you to that higher standard, who will share the wins, consolidate the losses, but keep you to that high standard, that is what the Heroic Mastermind is for. It is more than I ever thought it would be, and it has become the thing I am most proud of. On the side, if you are a creator on X, maybe not ready to take the step into a paid mastermind, but you want to get around a community, there is the Hero Academy. This is my school. It is completely free. And during the month of September, I am running a challenge where you can commit to 30 days of perfect action, essentially for a full month. The theme of the month is video on X due to the recent algorithm changes. So if you want to start creating video, you've got precisely 2 days to jump in on that challenge. And apart from that, I am also qualifying as a mindset coach to be able to better help the people I serve. So if you find yourself struggling with limiting beliefs, if you want to unlock the heroic potential that we all have, but you just can't see the way to get there, I'm here to help with that as well. And those are the things that I offer to the market. Going forward, you can expect books, you can expect courses, you can expect to stand in a crowd where I tell you how amazing you are on stage. But for right now, there's a mastermind for people who really want to get going, there's a community for people who want support, and then there's me available if you want one on one help.
Ladies and gentlemen, the hero of X, Will Carter. This has been absolutely phenomenal. I've loved having you on the show, dude. Thank you for
Well,
hopping on.
thank